KingofPodcasts.com proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. KOP is all about Amazon, and so should you. Go to King of Podcasts' special link at KingofAmazon.com. Let's go with another post-show episode of the Wrestling is Real podcast. We're recapping WWE's Clash of Champions Gold Rush here on the program. And so far, what we have that's going to share with you tonight were a couple of featured matches that were worth watching amongst a mid-card of just mediocrity and just repetitiveness. I mean, if you watch Raw or SmackDown for the last couple of months, you haven't seen anything different. Let's just say it like that. All right, so going to the matches itself. Starting off, pre-show match, Cesaro and Shinsuke and Nakamura over Lucha House Party. I don't think they really did too much to kind of build up on the constant issues with Kalisto and the kind of breaking up of the team right now. They didn't do so much anything about that, but, you know, they put the match together. It was fine. You know, it's what it was worth. It was something we've seen on TV many times. Like whatever kind of TGI Fridays variation we'd have of certain storylines and all of this throughout the night, or just what we've been watching on Raw on a regular basis or on SmackDown. Nothing extra special or different than you wouldn't have already seen. It really comes like that. Now, with that said, 10 minutes, 45 seconds, done. Okay, so they had some time for more matches, all right? And so one of the matches they did not do, first of all, Bayley did not face Nikki Cross tonight. We also know that Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax were not medically cleared to wrestle tonight. So those three did not wrestle. Therefore, Bayley did not have a SmackDown women's title match with Nikki Cross, nor did the women's tag team titles get defended at all. That didn't happen. Better off. Let's just say it was better off. So what they decided to do was they obviously gave more time to the IC title match to start off the night. Sami Zayn, Jeff Hardy, AJ Styles. The match was long. The gratuitous ladder shots they put into the match were expected. No surprise right there. I watched the match and I saw some of the moves they put in there. You know, that was what they did. Okay. The storyline I haven't been really necessarily been fond of. I mean, I think AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy alone was not much to really talk about. Adding Sami Zayn to the mix was somewhat interesting. You know, it was a reason to bring Sami Zayn back and put him into the mix. But I will say it was some creativity, and it was kind of interesting how they finished up the match. Where, I mean, the faces, which I think AJ Styles and Jeff Hardy were in this match in a way, they both looked like goofs. You know, they look like geeks, Brian Alvarez would say, right? At a Wrestling Observer newsletter. Yeah, they look like geeks. The idea is it was easily to get swindled by the crafty liberator, Sami Zayn, with the handcuffs, and he happened to have the key on him to uncuff himself in that scenario, right? To be able to go and do all that, and that's how he won the belt. I mean, okay, we could say that was something interesting. Michael Cole overblowing it, saying, oh my God, it's the most craziest thing I've ever called in my life. You know, this is the embellishments we always expect from this show. It was interesting. It's still very goofy at the end of the day. I mean, it wasn't so much about the match. Nobody's going to remember the match. It's not memorable, except for the ending. The fact that Sami Zayn won the belt like he did, that's the only thing is a takeaway from the whole match. And the fact that Sami Zayn won that, I mean, it takes away, it doesn't make much of the credibility for him. Just makes him look like a shitty heel, which I guess if that's what he's going to be, so be it. Because I think Sami Zayn doesn't have the credibility in the eyes of WWE creative and the management to be anything more than just a chicken shit heel that's able to sneak around and be very crafty to win the belt and hold on to it. But then again, how many heels are like that? Not a lot of strong, tough heels. They're not tribal chiefs. Let's just say it like that. Asuka comes out for 2 times in the night. And, you know, they gave Zelina Vega some offense. They definitely had her do some submission moves to try to make it where Asuka was really stuck on the ropes and was really going to be taken out. Could have definitely lost. But 7 minutes for the match, that's probably about more than enough time that he needed for it. Zelina Vega, you know, they also played down whatever wrestling she did before. I mean, with Samoa Joe asking her about asking about her background. Well, Samoa Joe can't say that he remember seeing Rosita, or that was her name in Impact Wrestling or TNA, working under the Team Mexican America. Remember that with Hernandez and Sarita, and I forget the other guy that really sucked, right? So, they're not going to remember that. I mean, she was an Impact Wrestling knockout or TNA knockout. But no, we're not going to remember that part. And she's only had limited wrestling over here. She's good. There's not even a question about that. She can wrestle. And they did make her credible in the match. But I like the portrayal of Zelina Vega. I mean, right now, you need opponents to look good in front of Asuka or other opponents. Because, I mean, we don't have the other 4 horsewomen out there. We don't have Charlotte Flair. We don't have Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks. They've put into an injury angle. So who else is there to go and look credible to go after Asuka? There isn't. And that's what's going on here. So she's still holding on to the belt. They didn't want to put Shayna Baszler in the mix. They want to put her in the tag team. Nia Jax would just injure women for the most part, based on her experience. So there's not much to do there. This was a match. They put it together, and the outcome was expected. So by submission, Asuka wins. 7 minutes in the match. By the way, 26 minutes for the IC title match. So a lot of time for that, just for a crafty finish. In the last 3 minutes, that was the only thing that really worth watching in the match, in my opinion. We've seen Bobby Lashley and Apollo Crews, I feel like, a million times. So to watch this match, I kind of took a little bit of a bathroom break here. I just was not paying attention too much. But Bobby Lashley retains. I mean, what else are you going to do? Same thing with the tag team title match. Andrade, Angel, Garza. Even when it's on Raw, they showed the clip where Street Profits were like, we don't even want to see them. We don't want to wrestle them again. We've already beaten them a bunch of times. Well, they did it again. 8 minutes, 15 seconds. Done. So this match meant nothing either. The middle of the card really meant nothing. Now, as for Bayley, she did come out. No Nikki Cross. So Asuka comes out and decides to go after the women's title herself. They have a short little tete-a-tete. And then Sasha Banks comes in, still holding the neck brace, attacks. So the one good thing that came out of this is that Sasha Banks and Bayley will get to face each other now with a belt on the line, because if they would have done it again without a belt, it would have sucked. The storyline is Sasha Banks wants to take the belt off of her. What is precious to Bayley, she wants to take that off her hands. So we need that to happen. That is the catalyst for this feud. Of course, the hatred of the feud together and the back and forth they've had with each other. We need to have something as a reason for it. Because I will say, compared to the last time we had Bayley and Sasha Banks, I think Sasha being the victim and Bayley being the shitty heel works better. I think Bayley has accomplished the job of being the heel. She's done the job. Regardless of anybody says, we've seen the heel Bayley, and it's been there. And she has been as effective as she was as a face. And probably she doesn't I think she's probably got as much popularity or as much viral or, appeal as she did as a face back before. Maybe not so much in her NXT days, but I think where was her highest point when she won the title. What was it? Wasn't it a Money in the Bank briefcase cash in or something like that? Wasn't that what happened? When she won, was it the Raw or SmackDown Women's title? I don't remember right now. But when she won that first title on the main roster, that was as high as you can get. But the heel turn worked, and her as a heel has worked very well. So that's one of the few signs they have. Is she really turning it around? No, it's not so much her that's the catalyst. It's her and Sasha Banks that are the appeal. And it's more Sasha Banks than Bayley. And I think Bayley has been taken advantage of by kind of working with Sasha Banks, because if it was somebody else, it doesn't work. We've seen that with Lacey Evans. We've seen that with Asuka. It just doesn't work. It doesn't have that same appeal. And with Charlotte Flair, that's another story. But again, Charlotte Flair is AWOL. She's not even around. So that's what they're doing right now. So Bayley, Sasha Banks, that's how you use that SmackDown Women's title. That's an effective thing to do. SmackDown just has the better feuds. And we can see that across the board with what they're doing. Because that IC title match did stand out and was something interesting. It wasn't boring for 26 minutes. I just thought the match was longer than it needed to be. But again, they needed to fill time because of a match being scratched from the card. So, Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton. It's another match we've seen, again, with a gimmick and the ambulance match. The ambulance thing, taking some bumps that were unnecessary. Seeing Drew McIntyre get thrown into the windshield. Like, I know we saw that with the street fight with Best Friends and Santana Ortiz on AEW, which was a much better match. I mean, it's just that we've seen, how many matches with Randy Orton do we need to see that are really like the hardcore style? I mean, I still think the match with Edge wasn't the best, and it was stretched out, and it's as if that Randy Orton can't be given any other kind of matches. Now, what was the curious thing they did here was they brought all of his victims back, which was a nice tie-in. Okay, that worked. And Drew McIntyre wins. And it needed to be that. I mean, Drew McIntyre holding on here. It's time for him to find a new opponent. We need to finish up the Randy Orton storyline here, which I think they did. And Ric Flair driving off the ambulance, I think they really did put a bow on the feud. I think that's a closed feud. It's done. Randy Orton needs to go next. Is it Keith Lee? Do we transition him over to that? I think that's where they can go. I don't think we need to see Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee at this point. They might just go that route, but I think, where does Keith Lee stand in the whole mix? We need to find out what happens tomorrow night. But the match doesn't matter all together. The match to watch tonight was Roman Reigns, accompanied by Paul Heyman, against Jey Uso. Listen, Friday night was such a fantastic job of building up this match in a short amount of time. Like, the family tree background was excellent. Roman Reigns as the tribal chief, the head of the table, is fucking awesome. It's you know what you talk about when you have a superstar like Roman Reigns right now, you're going to turn him heel. If you want to make sure you got the most out of this heel turn, you got it. Pairing him up against Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso coming out, and the sibling rivalry right there, and the true, like, just diabolical, like, just sociopathic kind of tendencies now of Roman Reigns. I mean, that guy's just, he's seething for attention. He's seething for domination. He's a tyrannical ruler. It's fucking awesome. It's the best thing they could have done with him. Really good stuff. I enjoy this match. Jey Uso did get his offense in. They did make it where he got close to winning. But then the way they finished it off, the last like 10 minutes, Roman Reigns just pummeling the shit out of Jey Uso, making him barely almost unconscious. And the shit talking about Roman Reigns, to basically say, you need to acknowledge me as a tribal chief, the head of the table. You need to acknowledge me above all. This is my ring, my camera, my WWE. That is so damn good. All of it. That is the best gimmick in the company. And that's including NXT. It's as good as Karrion Kross. It's that good. And I think it's better. Roman Reigns, we see the evolution of the character going heel. No more vest. You see him looking jacked. Looks like a fucking tank. He looks in great shape. His growling, his screaming in the ring was so effective. It's so old school. He kind of felt like one of the Wild Samoans. He felt like Afa in a way. Just terrorizing his cousin. I mean, and, Jey Uso kind of still was like, he's getting held up, and here you go, grueling in front of the camera, like half open. But I think Jimmy Uso coming out, that really helped that, because Jey Uso, not so good at the emotional kind of like, heart-wrenching kind of stuff. But Jimmy Uso coming in, throwing in a towel, nice touch. 22 minutes, 55 seconds. Fantastic match. This was the match that made the show. It was the best thing in the whole card. So the IC title was fine. Everything else was filler except for that damn Universal title match. That was damn awesome. Really awesome. I love that match. One of the best. And to make that match with Jey Uso, to make that match matter, they did a really good job to get that to a point. Listen, it wasn't that hard to book. You have the family history. So to put that here, get the family out there to come in and talk. Get Rikishi to talk. Get Afa to talk, or get Sika to talk, and just bring everybody together. That was awesome. We need to play that up. The tribal chief gimmick right now is the best thing going. Fantastic job by Roman Reigns. He is as good as can be. This is the kind of thing that SmackDown needs right now. They need more stars like Roman Reigns as he is right now. This is the level. This is about as good as the level of Brock Lesnar or John Cena has been at their peak. But Roman Reigns needs opponents. Like, you can run with this sibling rivalry gimmick right now for a while. You can let the Usos and other people come in here and play this up. You can play this up for a while. And also, the fact that Paul Heyman cannot control what's going on here. Roman Reigns, again, Paul Heyman is just like the counsel. He's not the advocate. He's just like a counsel. He's just like, supportive. But Paul Heyman has no control over this guy. It's the same thing with Brock Lesnar, but even to another level. There's a lot of layers to this. More wrestlers need this kind of detail, and they need this kind of detail. They need this kind of attention. They need this kind of this much dimensional background. This is character development. This is WWE character development when they do it right. This is the catalyst of what they can do. They need to do this across the board. Your main eventers need to be booked like that. Drew McIntyre has been booked well. Has not been booked great, but he's been booked strong. And that's what needs to happen here. And of course, they always do better with heels and faces. But that's what's going on here. And it's really the best thing going on right now with Roman Reigns. So there's other things I can bring up. I'm going to just leave it there. I mean, I could bring up the fact that Roman Reigns, that The Rock decided to go ahead and endorse Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Not that he did that, but the way that he put it together, where it felt like he just kind of got put together and was kind of made to do that. Because, talking about a guy that's not been very political. They trying to throw his name out as a presidential candidate and all, but I just didn't like the fact that he put himself out there. I see a 7-minute video where, okay, the first 2 minutes, yeah, he gives his endorsement, fine. But then the placating to the candidates looked fake. And especially fake by the candidates. I just think that I get what you're trying to do here, where the candidates, Biden and Harris, want to do that. That's fine. And I don't want to be political about this. I'm just talking about The Rock himself. To add his politics into this now, it feels pushed. It feels like he's trying to be led on. I'm not really interested in so much of that because I never felt like that. I felt like this is not The Rock. I feel like this is not something that The Rock would do, especially now. And also, when you're talking about 5 weeks from Election Day, and this is something that's being done, I feel like this is like a Hail Mary being done by that campaign, by the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris campaign. I really think it's just a Hail Mary throw. You got a celebrity with a lot of pull and a whole lot of virality. There's a lot of young people that will look up to him as a role model. And if he says, vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they expect people to go and say, okay, Rock, we'll do whatever you want. Will it work? But is that, does Dwayne Johnson really feel like, was that the thing he wanted to do? Did he feel like it was something that he needed to necessarily do? I don't know so much. We'll leave it there. There is also the other thing from Variety.com about how people feel like, why wrestling is not as popular as it used to be. I'm going to leave that for the Wednesday night show because there's a lot to get into that. There might not be so much to talk about when it comes to Clash of Champions, but I will say there are some interesting things they point out. And of course, the study really doesn't say everything, but I want to get into that Wednesday night. I want to take some time with that. I'll make it short tonight. We're going to leave it there. By the way, NXT TakeOver 31, that comes up next Sunday. We'll do a post show for that. And we'll leave it there. Come back for another Wrestling Is Real podcast. We'll do it this coming Wednesday going to Thursday because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling Is Real podcast. Brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and on Facebook at Wrestling Is Real. Subscribe to the Wrestling Is Real podcast through all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. You can also look for episodes on his YouTube channel, youtube.com/JBRASCO951. You can find all this information and more by going to the website, WrestlingIsReal.com.